Well, you could be forgiven for thinking that politically the only thing that's on anybody's mind is the 23rd of June, of course, when we decide whether or not we want to stay in the European Union. There are some other important dates, not least May the 5th, which is the next local government elections. There'll also be elections on that day for police and crime commissioners. And wrapped around all of this is the West Midlands Combined Authority. I was going to say it's going to take over all the local authorities, but I know my guests will jump at me if I say that. Bob Sleigh, nice to see you.
Nice to see you,
Bob is leader of Solihull Council. He's also chairman of the West Midlands Combined Authority Shadow Board. That's the one thing that we can't say about it, isn't it? That that's how it's going to be. That it's going to take over everybody, because it's going to be a unifying body, but no more. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, Bob. In essence, it doesn't do what local authorities do. It does what they can't do as local authorities. So from my perspective in Solihull, I can do an awful lot as leader of Solihull Council, but some of the big ticket stuff we need to do in the West Midlands, I don't have the negotiating power with government to actually do that. So transport, a large skills initiative, all of those things, it needs to be done on a much larger scale.
I mean, the present government have very much pushed this, haven't they? They're very much in favour of it.
I think whichever government we'd have got, I think there would have been a devolution proposal in essence. It may have been slightly different, some nuances, but in essence I think the transfer of powers from Whitehall to the regions to give people more control over what we actually do within our region, I think that's on the agenda of all major political parties.
Will you be given a sort of a budget to work to as a West Midlands Combined Authority? Or is it a question of, I mean, will you effectively manage your own finances? Yeah,
so what we've done is we've, as well as the creation of the Combined Authority, which we've been doing over the last 12 months, we've also been negotiating with government for a devolution deal for the West Midlands. And what that brings us is some new money, about £39.5 million, and that with a number of other funding streams and business rate retention allows us to create an investment fund across the West Midlands for the next 30 years of around about £8 billion. So the Combined Authority will identify where's the best place to spend that, what we want to spend it on, and basically we'll invest in those things to drive the economy up.
So for the average voter, will it make life better having an authority like this?
I think for everyone in the West Midlands, there's a real opportunity. So let's take two big challenges. One, we've got a £16 billion productivity gap in the West Midlands. Might not mean a lot to people out of there, but what it actually means is we're underperforming in the West Midlands against other areas of the country. And that equates to about £4,000 per head of population, which we should be producing, which we're not producing. So if we can close that gap by improving our skills proposals, improving transport, getting better business advice and support, and bringing some of the land in the West Midlands back into productive use, we can drive the economy up, and that's good for everybody.
Because it's never going to get back to being the huge manufacturing base it once was, is it?
Well, we still account for about, our economy is about 13% of manufacturing. We are an exporting economy, of course, in the West Midlands, and that's very important to us. So one of the challenges for some of our major employers who are exporting across the world is really getting goods to market. So the Combined Authority is going to take on the challenges of the strategic highway network in the West Midlands. What do we do when we have problems with that? What do we need to invest in to give those employers, those companies, a better opportunity to get their goods to market? So, there are markets opening up in the world, Bob, that we don't even know about yet.
Do you want HS2? I mean, it will impact on your home patch, as it were, Solihull.
I mean, Solihull Council have got a very clear view now. We obviously had the debate about whether HS2 or not is going to come. It probably is going to come. And I've always been very clear, I don't let the train pass us by in Solihull. That's the important thing for us. So we're the first station on the line. Our UK central proposals, which drives up our local economy, is not predicated on HS2, but actually has HS2 as a very valuable part of that. So we're attracting investment all the time. And people are coming to Solihull because actually we're the centre of the highway network, the rail network, and HS2 just adds to that. So really HS2 is about driving our economy. There's a very good reason for that. Local government finance really is difficult, and it's going to get even worse over the next few years. So, whereas I might get a figure of around about £40 million currently from government, in 3 or 4 years' time that'll be down to 7. If I want to give people the services they want in Solihull, in essence I've got to close that gap. And the only way I do that really sensibly is through attracting inward investment. That pays for the services that my people expect us to deliver. So we're investing in Solihull, that's what we do.
Because the thing with something like HS2 is, of course, that there are people who say, well, it's going to cut a swathe through the countryside, it's going to spoil this, spoil that. Houses will be, taken over and people will be given money for them. And yet they are happy where they are. I'm sure it might seem like a small percentage of people, but that small percentage will feel very affected, won't they?
I think overall, there are I recognise it's difficult for people who are faced with these situations, but in essence, what HS2 does for us, and I've said I don't want to let the train pass us by, is it actually supports that economy in Solihull. So, for instance, Cllr are bringing their headquarters into Solihull because of the connectivity issues. Resorts World built at the NEC, £150 million connectivity. Chang'an Automotive have come from China, one of the largest employers, motor manufacturers in China, employ 40,000 people. They brought their research and development arm to Solihull because of connectivity. Airports, NEC, Resorts World, and the whole of the UK central proposal. And Solihull's a great place to live. I mean, we've got Touchwood, which is an absolute a treasure and a national exemplar of what you can do in a town centre. So
you see it all as nothing but positive?
There will be downsides, I don't deny that. In essence, in part of my ward, for instance, being parochial, some of those communities will be impacted, I recognise that. But, this is a project that's going to drive the economy for the next 100 years. And I think, jobs are already being created, of course, HS2 College, HS2 headquarters, already coming into Greater Birmingham and Solihull as well. So we are seeing some economic benefits already from HS2.
I'm surprised to hear you say Greater Birmingham. I thought those were two words that couldn't go together.
Well, we've been using the term for quite some time with regard to the Local Enterprise Partnership, of course. It is the Greater Birmingham and Solihull Local Enterprise Partnership. And one of the things we've done with the combined authority to embed business, to make sure we're not starting with a clean sheet of paper, is we've brought those local enterprise partnerships in. So Coventry and Warwickshire, Greater Birmingham and Solihull, and the Black Country, because we want business embedded in the combined authority, and they'll be driving the economic growth stuff for the West Midlands.
Wearing your Solihull Council hat, did you have to work very hard to make people who live there not think they were going to lose all the things that make them want to live in Solihull?
So Solihull's an important place, it's a very special place, and the important thing that people wanted to know was that the sovereignty of Solihull was not being challenged by this whole issue of a combined authority. And we took the situation very seriously, and we worked very slowly in delivering the message as to what it is and what it isn't. But the one important thing we identified early on in the combined authority proposal is what it does for our economy. And actually we developed what we call Economic Plus. So that is what I could do myself and what I can do in a combined authority. And as I previously said, it's the stuff that we can do in an agglomeration. And actually that drives the economy of Solihull forward at an accelerated rate. So it makes life better a bit earlier than we thought we were going to do it.
Because if you look at the authorities that are going to be affected, they are a very disparate group, aren't they? I mean, you've got, from Coventry, you've got Coventry, Solihull, Dudley, Sandwell, Birmingham, Wolverhampton. I mean, they are very, very different in their current needs, let alone as part of a big party.
We've also got some of the district councils, of course, and other authorities now looking for their role in the combined authority. So Stratford-upon-Avon are in there, Redditch, a number of other local authorities, and other people are reconsidering their position. Yes, but in the essence, we've got common cause. That's the important point in the West Midlands. We all recognise that we have to speak with a single voice to get these powers and this amount of money into the West Midlands for the benefit of the West Midlands. So one of the principles in the combined authority, which we set up when we first established it, is all communities will benefit, but not necessarily all at the same time. So everyone over the 30-year period will have their share to drive up their economy. But what we're going to do through what we call our super economic plan for the West Midlands is identify what we need to invest in early, start delivering on, to drive up that whole economy and close those productivity gaps. And actually there's some public sector reform stuff there as well, which we're trying to do, because the Treasury pays us about £3.9 billion more than we put into it to support our public services. So we're looking at some reform work there as well. Very specific areas: mental health, troubled families, looking at some of those those things at this point in time. But that'll do some of the public sector stuff.
Would it have made it difficult if anybody had been lukewarm about being part of it, or in fact actually turned around and said, no, we're not going to join it? Was that ever an option for anybody?
I think it was an option for all authorities, quite frankly. But I think when we all started to recognise we could build a relationship, and let's be fair, you know, Northern Powerhouse is out there. Every time you turn the television on, somebody's telling you what they're doing up there, and they've built the metro, the Trafford Centre's benefited from that. So we looked at what actually it meant for the West Midlands, and I think that all the leaders and the district councils recognised that we needed actually to start speaking with a single voice on the things that need a single voice, and that I'm very clear on that. It's the transport, the skills, business support, land remediation. By the way, for instance, it doesn't do my planning in Solihull. It doesn't build houses in Solihull. That's my responsibility. It doesn't do any of that. It has no planning powers whatsoever.
The noisy neighbours up north, as you mentioned there, Manchester, I mean, they've shouted a lot. They've had the Commonwealth Games. Do you think that, to some extent, that people in the Midlands were a little so off the mark, and when they saw what they were doing, they thought, we better up our game and maintain being the second city?
I think that, in essence, we've got a proud history in the West Midlands. You know, we were, before anyone talked about, engines for growth, we were the engine for growth. I think people are proud to be in the West Midlands, and I think we see some real opportunity with the combined authority, which, I don't think in any way that we're behind Greater Manchester, Northern Powerhouse. We're in front of them. We just have different priorities to them. They have a different economy to us. Our economy is based on a number of areas that theirs isn't, and we need to work with those areas.
As I said in the introduction, you are chairman of the shadow West Midlands Combined Authority. Lots of things have got to be sorted out. Will it still be called the West Midlands Combined Authority? Because it's not really catchy, is it?
It's the working title, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what we've got to do, because if the purpose is to attract that inward investment, do the public sector reform stuff, we need an international voice, in essence. So what we called for what market we served will be something the combined authority is now starting to work on. So if I draw the example, Birmingham Airport relaunched last week as, Shakespeare's, using the Shakespeare brand to sell what they're selling. I think we've got to identify, to whichever market we're talking to, what the West Midlands has to offer. And as you quite rightly say, we're going to have to come up with some innovative ideas about how we sell the West Midlands across the world, basically.
Because all those local authorities will all stake their claim. They'll all say, we've got this, we've got that, etc., etc. But I suppose when it comes down to it, Birmingham is the one that people know. And you're in quite a privileged position, really, aren't you, in Solihull? Because, as you say, you've got the NEC up the road, you've got the airport, etc., etc.
Yeah, we've got major assets. We've got the airport, as you say, NEC. We work actually, and have done for some time, with Birmingham through the Greater Birmingham and Solihull Local Enterprise Partnership, which has delivered its local growth fund, and we've benefited, both Birmingham and Solihull have benefited from that. So we do work on some of this stuff already. This isn't about us delivering services on a day-to-day basis for Birmingham, nor for anyone delivering ours. We will deliver social care, we'll deliver the education, which we're very proud of. We'll empty the bins in Solihull. None of that stuff changes, basically.
We could end up with some redrawn boundaries, I know, both at local and national government level as we go forward. More immediately, there will be elections on the 5th of May, including the Police and Crime Commissioner. The turnout last time was poor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How do you engage people into thinking this is something that they should care about, something they should vote for?
Well, I think, from my perspective, I think we should all vote for the Police and Crime Commissioner. It has a very powerful role, very influential role. It's dealing with an awful lot of stuff, both in the criminal justice world as well as in the police world. I'm not the Police and Crime Commissioner. You should probably ask him and the candidates what their ambitions are. It was a low turnout, but because I think of the timing of it, it's at the same time now as our local elections. I think the turnout will be greater. And
you obviously are hoping for a change of office there, aren't you? Because you'd obviously like a Conservative candidate in there. Should it be a political post, though?
It's a different model across the country, isn't it? Some people recognise, obviously, they are politicians. Other people have chosen a different route, and they've chosen sort of deputy commissioners across party. I think it's horses for courses, really. Bob Jones, I think, had a view. I'm sure David has a view, and I'm sure my candidate's got a view.
Fairly briefly, we have mentioned those two words, Greater Birmingham, more than once. Can you ever see West Midlands Combined Authority being called Greater Birmingham?
What I've said is, and I think I'm very clear on this, how we market the West Midlands Combined Authority and the West Midlands is a matter for debate now in the Combined Authority. And we're working on that with some very experienced people to identify what that badge is going to be, dependent on the market we're working in.
And that was a true politician's answer. Completely evaded it. Bob Sleigh, thank you for being with us, leader of Solihull Council and chairman of the West Midlands Combined Shadow Board. See you after the break.